16. 5 Principles to Success. Phoebe Chongchua. Phoebe Chongchua is a real estate writer, realtor with the Gutiérrez Group, and veteran television newscaster based in San Diego, California. As a national real estate writer, licensed agent, and veteran television newscaster, I have interviewed thousands of people asking them detailed questions about real estate and how to be successful in it. I found 5 key principles. 1. Get into real estate game. In 2006, according to Forbes magazine, there were nearly 800 billionaires. More than 60 of the billionaires make their wealth in whole or in part in the real estate industry. If you want a chance at being rich, you've got to get in the game. 2. Buy and hold. It's contradictory to what we have seen happen in several markets across the US. Speculators time in the market bought properties with the intention of flipping for huge profits. While that did sometimes happen, it's risky business. Wealth isn't usually made overnight in real estate. Buying and holding real estate can create bigger long-term gains. 3. Never sell. Instead, do a 1031. I've spoken with many brokers who assert that when you want to get out of an investment or a commercial property, trading up is the way to go. Using a 1031 exchange to defer your tax gains not only saves your money, but also allows you to buy the next property you want. 4. Cash reserves trumps cash flow. Of course, to have both is optimal, but real estate attorney and author William Bronchick told me that cash reserve trumps cash flow. Why? Let's say you have a property that provides $400 cash flow. Your monthly mortgage is $1,500 and you have no or very little cash reserves. And 1 month vacancy will eat up a little more than a 3-month profit. Now, if you have repairs that come due at a time as that vacancy, you could go broke quickly. But just as in any business, cash reserves can help you survive rough periods. Even if you have a $100 negative cash flow but $20,000 in the bank, you're prepared when broken times hit. The bottom line is to have a cash reserve to sustain the property. In an appreciating market, where you have a cash reserve but a small amount of negative cash flow, you will ultimately do fine. 5. Be enthusiastic, not overly excited. When we become overly excited, we often forget to ask the important questions. Sometimes distraction is replaced by frivolous emotions that make something seem more vital than it is. In real estate, no matter whether you're buying your primary residence or your 100th property, being enthusiastic and diligent about the deal will benefit you. But if you allow yourself to get overly excited, you're likely to miss both the good and the bad points about the property. For instance, when properties have multiple offers and a bidding war ensues, buyers who become overly excited and eager to win the property can find they will end up paying much more than they bargained for. 17. Listen to your television. Frank Cook. Frank Cook is a best-selling real estate author whose books include 21 Things I Wish My Broker Had Told Me, You're Not Buying That House, Are You? And 21 Things Every Home Inspector Should Know. The best bit of real estate advice I ever received was from a buyer stockbroker, Jim Workington, in Northern Virginia, who told me that if I wanted to be successful in real estate, I should watch television. In his opinion, the best sign that the bull market was beginning into turn was seeing real estate agents on TV who were talking about what a good investment real estate was right now. When real estate agents start selling homes as an investment instead of a shelter, you know the market is about to turn, Watkinson said. According to the agent, prudent, professional real estate investors know how to time the market, and most real estate agents working on the street do not. He considered it a forest for the trees syndrome. The closer real estate agents are to the market, and the busier the agents are, the more likely they are to miss the market's swing because they are part of that swing. By the time they realize that double-digit percentage equity gains are occurring, it's too late to get in at the bottom. In fact, the market may be close to its peak by the time the agent on the street gets a clue. In other words, real estate agents typically jump on the bandwagon just before it breaks and start advertising homes as a race investments. But my friend cautioned that doesn't mean you should avoid getting in. He points out that most real estate slumps are actually no more than a leveling off. Market values don't really deteriorate as much as they stop going up and up. There are exceptions, of course. If the local bid manufacturer suddenly has massive layoffs, value could dive. In most markets, where there is slowdown, the worst case scenario is a slide of between 5 and 10% in values, and it usually doesn't last more than 18 months to 2 years before the markets resume an upward trend. Again, there are exceptions. California in the early to mid-1980s hit a slump that took about 5 years for the market to recover from. There were massive overbuilding and massive speculation, which led to the savings and loan debacle. By and large, this advice has withstood the test of the time, raised to today. While there consistently had been dutiful stories in the papers about the expansion in the house market over the last few years, it wasn't until mid-2005 that real estate agents and the mainstream media really started pumping up the balloon, talking about cab drivers at cocktail parties bragging about making $50,000 in 3 months in real estate. Not 5 months later, you start hearing about housing cooling off. 18. Work with what you've got. Barbara Corcoran. Barbara Corcoran is founder of the Corcoran Group, New York City's leading real estate company, and author of Use What You've Got and Other Business Lessons I Learned from My Mom, and If You Don't Have Big Breasts, Put Ribbons on Your Pigtails. Excerpted from the book If You Don't Have Big Breasts, Put Ribbons on Your Pigtails, written by Barbara Corcoran and published by Penguin Group. Copyright Barbara Corcoran. The story of my $1 million business starts like this. I borrowed $1,000 from a friend. Okay, I didn't borrow it. He gave it to me. And he wasn't a friend. He was a boyfriend. But when I moved into my first apartment on East 86th Street with 2 roommates, I did have $1,000 to start a real estate company. It seemed so simple. There'd be virtually no overhead. I rapidly ran 2, maybe even 3 apartments a day. and we'll be running at a profit by the second Sunday of every month. All the rest will be gravy. I told my business partner, boyfriend, Ramon Simon, and we will share the gravy evenly, he added. Or almost evenly. 49% for me and 51% for him. After all, he explained, he was the one risking the money. I was sweeping the counter of the fourthly dinner the first time Raman walked in. It was a quiet night. There were only a few customers in the diner, and the other waitress, Gloria, had a moan. While Gloria and her two well-rounded friends, Gloria was built like Dolly Parton with a big blackish blonde swirl of cotton candy hair. Her breast was the specialty of the house and had no power to lure men off the street, even if they weren't hungry. She could carry 6 cups of coffee stacked on top of them and never spill a drop. Gloria and her dynamic duo had put the Fort Lee diner on the map, and watching the drinks bounce around the diner had become a sport in Fort Lee. I was watching her work from the run session and, in an effort to feel busy, I was wiping the barren Formica landscapes in front of me with a soggy white rat. The double aluminum doors at the far end of the diner opened, and in walked my destiny. I knew he was there before I ever looked up. With his dark skin and jet black hair, he was unlike the working-class customer who frequented the place. In his blue aviator sets, he was different, probably from a land very far away, at least across the river, I figured. He ordered a cup of tea, and while I bent in and out of the swinging kitchen door, he sat and sipped it, hardly moving, just watching as I worked my counter. Raman told me he was from the Basque country. I didn't know if Basques were town in New Jersey or not, and I suppose my face gave me away. I wasn't just any place in Spain, he explained. It was the upper elite of French Spanish society. He left 65 cents on the counter and offered me a ride home. I didn't need to weigh the options, walk the 5 blocks to the number 8 Lemon Avenue bus, or be driven home by the man from the Basque country. I'm finished at 10, I blurted. After my shift, I took the dinner's corridor steps, 2 at a time. Ramen was parked at the bottom in a buttercup yellow Lincoln Continental, the kind with the hump on the back. I opened the door and climbed into a car, very different from any I ever been in. The seats felt like talcum powder against my arms and smelled expensive, unlike the raunchy seats of that blue station wagon. My family hated Ray on sight, especially my mom, who, contrary to her normally welcoming ways, wanted the dark night out of her house as quickly as possible. He is much older than you, Eon, I remember her saying after Ray left. What she didn't say screamed loudly in the silence. Ray waited outside the diner every night and gave me a ride home. I guess you could say we were dating, though I didn't think of the rides that way. He told me he was a big real estate developer and built houses in every town in New Jersey except mine. I also learned that he was 15 years older than I and was divorced with 3 daughters. To me, this all added to the intrigue. A few months later, Ray said a smart girl like me should be living in the big city, and to get started, he offered to pay for a week at the Parisian Hotel for Women. To my mother's dismay, I jumped at his offer and packed up a few belongings. Ray gave me some money to go buy myself a real New York outfit. I bought a purple one. I walked out of Bloomingdale's on purple and paraded up Lexington Avenue singing, "Hey there, Georgie girl," swinging down the street so fancy-free. I knew I was looking good and needed only two more things to stay in New York, a job and an apartment. The next morning, I put on my new outfit and applied for a receptionist position with the Gaffney Brothers Company on 83rd and 1st. Thelma, my interviewer, explained that the Gaffney brothers were two wealthy landlords who owned a dozen apartment buildings in Manhattan and Brooklyn. She said, "I'll be in charge of greeting every tenant who called with, 'Good morning, Gaffney Brothers.'" By the end of the day, I had landed the receptionist position, and by the end of the week, I had used the village voice one desk to find an apartment 3 blocks away from the office and 2 girls to share the rent. I moved myself out of the Parisian Hotel. My Gaffney brothers stink introduced me to Manhattan real estate. I wore my purple outfit 8 days a week and probably said, "Good morning, Gaffney brothers," 800 times a day. But after a few months of Good Morning Gaffney Brothers, I eagerly gave Ray my no overhead spiel about running at a profit by the second Sunday of every month, and he gave me the $1,000 to start a real estate company. We became partners and named it Cochran Simon. My old boss, Joseph Gaffney, said if I could find a tenant for one of his apartments, he would pay me a whole month's rent as a commission. He showed me the list of apartments they had for rent, and I picked up apartment 3K, the cheapest one-bedroom on the list. I created my makeshift Cochran Simon office on the sofa one of my roommates has borrowed from her parents. My newly installed pink princess phone sat silent on the double-sided mahogany end table as I started bleary-eyed at the Sunday New York Times classified section. According to my count, there were exactly 1,246 one-bedroom apartments advertised. The ads were 5 or 6 lines long. The apartments were on prices between $320 and $380 a month. I noticed the best ads among the lot were flashy ones with a bigger, bolder headlines like Fabulous 3, Review 1BR, Triple Mint, followed by a long list of superlatives. I worked out the numbers on my steno pad and realized that the bid ads were a lot bigger than my bucket. I decided to keep my ad to 4 lines or less in order to make raise $1,000 last a whole month. But how, I wonder, could I make my little ad stand out among the biggest, and how was I going to draw someone's eye? Stretching my neck and looking up from the paper, I thought about my job at the Follied Diner. Gloria, now she has a gimmick. On my first day at the dinner, I saw Gloria had access I never have, and that night went home to fret to my mother. And when we wasn't busy, Mom, my counter was plain empty. Even when Gloria's stations were completely filled, men were still asking to sit with Gloria and not me. But Baronet, you've got a raised personality, Mom said, as she balanced baby Florence on her hip and hung a seat on the line. You're going to have to learn to use what you got. Since you don't have big breasts, why don't you tie some ribbons on your pigtails and just be as sweet as you are? And that's how Ray found me 2 years later, wearing ribbons on my pigtails and offering a chiffon alternative to the big-breasted, tiny-waisted, blonde bombshell folkly sensation. I consider it a personal victory when a customer walked into the diner and asked to sit with pigtails. The simple gimmick pulled them to my counter, and my sweet talking kept them coming back. Sitting alone in my apartment with the New York Times spread open on my lap, I thought about Mom's advice for competing with Gloria's superlatives, and I knew I needed an attention grabber for apartment 3K. How, I asked myself, can I put ribbons on a typical one-bedroom in 4 lines or less and make it stand out from the other 1,246 apartments? I took a deep breath and picked up my pink princess phone. "Hello, Mr. Guffini," I began. "I've been thinking about your one-bedroom on the 3rd floor, and I think I have a way to rent it for $20 more each month." I had his attention. I told him how apartment 3K's living room was like every other living room in every other apartment in every other building in New York, and convinced him that if he put up a wall separating the living room from the dining alcove, he'd really have something different. Mr. Guffini hesitated, giving it some thought, and then said he have the one installed that week. I found my ad into paper. The following Sunday, my first 4-line ad, bold print, counted for 2 lines, appeared in the New York Times. 1 BR plus Dan, $340. Barbara Corcoran, 212-355-3550. It wasn't a big ad like the others, but it sure offers something more. Why would anyone settle for a 1-bedroom when for the same price you could get a 1-bedroom with a den? That Sunday the cons began, and on Monday I rented my first apartment. Mom's lesson number 1: if you don't have big breasts, put ribbons on your pigtails. The lesson learned about using what you've got. I didn't have big chest, but I did have a nice personality, a red smile, and the gift of gab. All I needed was my mother's cue to begin using them to my advantage. That was my first lesson in sales. Although the apartment I advertised wasn't any bigger than the hundreds of other advertised that Sunday, my ad caught attention because it offered something extra. 1 more room. My 1 BR plus 10 ad enabled the customer to focus on the perceived benefit of more space, and the overwhelming response to the ad gave me a lot more bang for my advertising buck. Good salesmanship is nothing more than maximizing the positive and minimizing the negative. Although your competition might offer something you can't match, that doesn't matter. What matters is that you identify and play up what you've got.